He mocked her on the street, called her dirty, a beggar. But when a stranger forced a DNA test, the results left him shaking. She wasn't just a beggar, she was his mother. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. On a freezing winter morning, wrapped in a torn blanket and shivering on a park bench, sat a fragile old woman. Her fingers were stiff and red from the cold, her skin paper-thin and pale, but her back remained straight with a quiet dignity. People passed by quickly, clutching their coffee cups and wrapping their coats tighter, pretending she didn't exist. She was just another beggar to them, an invisible presence in the middle of the city's rush. But there was something different about her, something haunting. Her pale blue eyes, they weren't the eyes of a woman broken by life. They were eyes full of sorrow, yes, but also filled with secrets, deep ones, as if behind them lived 1,000 untold stories. Pain, yes, but wisdom too. She rarely moved and never spoke unless spoken to. Most didn't bother. A few would drop a coin. Others crossed the street. She was known only as Aurora. The name was given to her by a curious child once, years ago. She had whispered it softly to the little girl who offered her half a sandwich. That was the only time anyone heard her speak voluntarily. Since then, people referred to her as Aurora, though no one knew if that was her real name. The kids in the neighborhood threw stones at her for fun, which they'd scream, running off as she flinched, never chasing them, never scolding. Just silence. The street vendors hated her presence, claiming she scared off customers. They'd yell, toss water near her bench, or try to drive her away. But every morning, without fail, Aurora returned. She always sat in the same spot, just across the street from Langston and Myers, one of the city's most powerful law firms. No one knew why. It wasn't the best corner for begging. No church nearby, no soup kitchen, and certainly not much compassion from the suits who walked past her in a rush. People began to say she was mad. Some said she waited for someone who would never return. Others claimed she used to be rich and lost it all. But no one asked, and she never explained. Then one day, everything changed. It was a Monday morning, like any other. The cold was biting, snow was falling softly, and Aurora sat in her usual place. But this time, she wasn't alone. A black luxury car pulled up in front of the law firm. From it stepped a man in his 40s, tall, polished, and clearly important. He paused when he saw her. Something in his face shifted, surprise, then discomfort, then something else. Guilt. He crossed the street slowly, his expensive shoes crunching in the snow. The world seemed to pause. "Aurora?" he asked softly. She looked up. Their eyes met. Recognition flashed. The man knelt down in front of her, ignoring the snow soaking his slacks. He looked shaken. I thought you were dead," he whispered. She didn't answer at first. Then came her voice, soft and cracked like old parchment. "You wished I was." Gasps echoed around as passers-by stopped to stare. Phones came out. A homeless woman talking to a high-powered attorney? What was happening? "You left," she continued, "when I needed you most. When your father died, and I had nothing." His eyes watered. "I was young, angry. I didn't know what he had done." Aurora closed her eyes for a moment. "I lost everything. And when I asked for help, you turned me away. Your own mother." The crowd froze. "Mother?" The man collapsed to the curb beside her, hands shaking. "I'm sorry," he choked. "I thought you abandoned us. I didn't understand." For the first time in decades, Aurora allowed herself to cry. Silent tears streamed down her face, falling into the folds of her blanket. "You let them say I was mad," she said. "You let them erase me." "I'll fix it," he said. "Come with me. Come home." But she shook her head. "Home is not a place. It's what you took from me." He begged, pleaded, promised everything. A warm house, medical care, comfort, respect. Aurora looked into his eyes, searching for truth. Then she said something no one expected. "You can't buy forgiveness." He nodded, devastated. "I know, but can I earn it?" And for the first time in years, Aurora gave a small nod. From that day on, things changed. She no longer sat alone. Every morning, the man came and sat beside her, brought coffee, listened. Some days she spoke. Other days, they sat in silence. People started seeing her, not as a beggar, but as a person, a woman with a story, and slowly, the city that once ignored her began to remember that behind every silent face is a truth waiting to be heard. Inside the towering glass walls of Langston and Myers, the city's most prestigious law firm, worked Lucas Everett, a 26-year-old legal prodigy with a tongue sharper than a blade and a heart encased in ice. Lucas was the embodiment of success. Groomed in private schools, trained by the best, and raised with a silver spoon, he never knew what it meant to struggle. His suits were tailored, his car gleamed, and his reputation sparkled on social media with hashtags like #YoungandWinning and #FutureOfLaw. But beneath the polish, Lucas carried a dangerous flaw. He had no empathy for those beneath him, especially the poor. Every morning, as he strutted toward the building with his espresso in hand and ego on full display, he passed Aurora. He barely saw her as human. To him, she was just a stain on the sidewalk, an unpleasant reminder that not everyone lived in penthouses and drove imported cars. One icy morning, he stopped in front of her. She sat, as always, silent and still. Lucas sneered. "Why don't you get a job instead of sitting here like trash?" He scoffed, loud enough for nearby coworkers to hear. Laughter followed. His group of fellow young lawyers chuckled, nodding in approval. One clapped him on the back, muttering, "You're ruthless, man." Classic. Another day, Lucas went further. Armed with his phone and craving online attention, he walked over to Aurora holding a handful of coins. Time to feed the wildlife. He joked to the camera. He tossed the coins at her feet as if she were a pigeon. Aurora didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just looked up at him slowly, her blue eyes clouded with sorrow and pain. They trembled, not in fear, but in deep, aching disappointment. She whispered, "One day, you'll know." Lucas rolled his eyes. "Yeah, right, Grandma," he muttered, turning away with a mocking smirk. That video went viral, but not the way he expected. Within hours, #Lucas Everett trended, but for all the wrong reasons. Social media exploded in outrage. Comment after comment condemned his cruelty. Disgusting behavior. This man represents justice? Shame. How can a law firm employ someone like this? By evening, the video had hit national news. Langston and Myers held an emergency press conference. The next morning, distancing themselves from Lucas. He was placed on immediate suspension. Sponsors pulled out of deals. Influential clients withdrew cases. His brand, once untouchable, crumbled overnight. For the first time in his life, Lucas was truly alone. At first, he blamed everyone else. "They're overreacting," he told himself. "It was just a joke. People are too sensitive." But the call stopped. Friends ghosted him. Even his own father, a retired judge, refused to speak to him. But still, he refused to apologize. His pride wouldn't allow it. 1 week later, Lucas walked past Aurora again. No longer in his suit. No swagger. Just a hoodie, jeans, and tired eyes. She looked at him quietly. He stopped, unsure why. "I lost everything," he muttered. "All because of one video." Aurora didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply nodded. "You didn't lose everything," she said gently. "You just lost the mask." Lucas frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said, her voice firm now, "the world finally saw you. Not the version you painted online. The real you." Lucas sat down on the curb beside her, the cold seeping into his bones. For a long moment, they sat in silence. Then Aurora said, "You asked why I sit here every day. Do you want to know?" Lucas hesitated, then nodded. "This firm," she began, her eyes distant, "destroyed my life. Years ago, I trusted a man who worked here. A lawyer who promised justice, but took everything. My home, my savings, my family." Lucas stared at her, stunned. "Who?" "My husband," she said. "He worked here before he died. He forged papers, lied to courts. And when the truth came out, I was left with his mess. No one helped me. No one believed me." Lucas swallowed hard. "I sat here," she continued, "waiting, not for revenge, but for someone to finally see me. To realize that justice doesn't come from money or fancy suits or viral fame. It comes from truth, from humility." Lucas didn't know what to say. For once, he had no clever retort. The next day, he returned again. This time, with no camera, no entourage, just 2 cups of coffee and a quiet apology. And Aurora, with the same gentle patience, accepted it. Not his words, but his effort, over The next weeks, Lucas began to change. He volunteered at shelters, listened to the stories of those he once mocked. He started to understand the world beyond his bubble of privilege. Aurora had never asked for thanks. She just watched. And one day, as Lucas helped an old man cross the street near the bench, she smiled faintly and whispered, "Now you know." A week after the storm of humiliation had begun to settle, Lucas Everett returned to his office, not as the rising star of Langston and Myers, but as a man in the middle of a reckoning. His desk was bare, his inbox quiet, and the halls that once echoed with praise now felt cold with silence. That morning, as he sifted through a pile of mail, a plain envelope caught his eye. No return address, no logo, just his name handwritten in delicate cursive. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, just one sentence, typed in bold. "Ask your father who your mother really is." Lucas stared at the words, heart beginning to pound. Confusion swirled with irritation. He tossed the note aside, then picked it up again. Something about it felt deliberate, personal. By nightfall, the question haunted him. That evening, he drove to his father's house, an elegant estate tucked away in a quiet suburb, where order and image had always been everything. His father, Douglas Everett, a retired judge known for his iron will and spotless reputation, answered the door with his usual composed expression. But that changed the moment Lucas showed him the letter. Douglas's face paled. His hands trembled ever so slightly as he reached for the paper. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice thin. "It was on my desk this morning," Lucas replied. "What does it mean? Who is my mother?" Douglas turned away, pacing toward the fireplace. He stared into the flickering flames for what felt like forever. Lucas had never seen his father so shaken. "Dad," Lucas pressed, voice firmer now. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Silence. Then finally, Douglas spoke, slowly, painfully. "Lucas, your real mother disappeared when you were a baby," he said. "You were just over a year old. You were too young to remember. After months of searching, the police presumed her dead. She vanished without a trace." Lucas blinked, stunned. "What? But, Mom, my whole life, she—" Douglas interrupted gently. "We adopted you after she was gone. Your adoptive mother raised you as her own. We didn't want to hurt you. We thought it was better if you never knew." Lucas sat down, breathless. "You lied to me. We protected you," Douglas whispered. "At least, that's what we believed at the time." Lucas's mind raced. Questions swirled like a storm. Memories, assumptions, the foundation of his life crumbling beneath him. Then one terrifying thought rose above the rest. Could it be her? Could Aurora, that woman, the one he had mocked, insulted, humiliated, be connected to him? Could she be his real mother? He didn't sleep that night. The pieces refused to settle. The sorrow in her eyes, the way she looked at him, the whispered warning, "One day you'll know." The next morning, before the sun fully rose, Lucas was already in his car, speeding toward the park. Snow dusted the ground again, and the cold gnawed at his skin. But he barely noticed. His heart thundered as he approached the familiar bench, and there she was, Aurora, sitting as always, wrapped in the same worn blanket, her silver hair fluttering in the breeze. Still, silent. Watching he slowed to a stop. In front of her, breath catching in his throat, she looked up, and no surprise in her eyes. No anger, just sadness. And something else, resignation. Lucas stood frozen. Then finally, he spoke. "Who are you?" She didn't answer. "Please," he begged, stepping closer. "Did you send the letter?" Still, she was quiet. Lucas dropped to his knees before her, just like the man from the week before. The one he'd later learn was her estranged son from a different life. "I need to know the truth," Lucas said, voice trembling. "My father, he told me about my real mother. That she disappeared. That I was adopted." Her eyes glistened. "I thought my whole life was one thing. But now," he swallowed. "Is it you? Are you?" She slowly reached out, her frail hand brushing against his cheek. Her fingers shook, but her touch was warm. "I never wanted to leave you," she whispered. Tears welled in Lucas's eyes. "I looked for you for years," she continued. "They said you were gone, that someone else had taken you, that I had no right. I was broken, Lucas. And when I tried to fight, no one listened." He stared at her, stunned, his heart pounding in his ears. "You're my mother?" She nodded. Slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. I always knew I'd see you again, but I never thought it would be like this. Lucas collapsed into her arms, and for the first time in decades, Aurora held her son, and for the first time in his life, Lucas felt whole. Snowflakes drifted gently through the air as Lucas approached the park bench. The once arrogant lawyer now moved with quiet hesitation, his polished image long stripped away. In his hand, a cup of coffee. In his heart, a storm. Aurora sat as she always did, still, fragile, wrapped in that same torn blanket. But when she saw him approach, her pale blue eyes lifted to meet his. The same eyes he had stared into for weeks, yet never truly seen. Lucas swallowed hard and sat down beside her. He hesitated, then finally asked, "Why are you sitting here every day?" Aurora didn't answer at first. She stared across the street. At the law firm, her gaze distant. Then, in a voice so soft it barely carried, she whispered, "Because this is the only place I could still see you, my son." Lucas's world tilted that he blinked, confused. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, though his voice trembled. Aurora reached slowly into her coat pocket. Her fingers, thin and worn, trembled as she pulled out a small, crumpled photograph. She handed it to him without a word. Lucas took it. The image was faded, the corners bent and creased from time and weather. In the photo, a younger Aurora held a baby boy, no more than 3 months old. Her hair was darker, her eyes the same. Her smile, radiant on the back, in delicate handwriting, it read, "Lucas, 3 months." Lucas stared at the photo, his heart pounding in his chest. His mind screamed for logic, for denial, but something deep inside him, something unspoken and ancient, stirred. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a scam. Still, pride and fear warred within him. Anyone could have written that, he said flatly, holding the picture tightly. "You could have found this somewhere. This doesn't prove anything." Aurora said nothing. Her silence wasn't defensive, it was sorrowful, as if she knew he needed time to catch up to the truth. Lucas stood abruptly. "I'm going to prove you wrong," he muttered. "I'm ordering a DNA test." He turned and left without waiting for a response. 3 days passed. Lucas told no one. He kept the envelope sealed in his drawer, unopened for nearly an hour, afraid of what was inside. He paced, sipped water, ran his hands through his hair, then finally, he tore it open. His eyes scanned the result. 99.99% match. Biological mother and son. The room spun. He sat down, unable to breathe. Every word she said, every whisper, every tear, it was all real. The woman he had mocked. The woman he had insulted. The woman he filmed for likes and followers. The woman he tossed coins at like she was trash. She was his mother. Guilt crashed over him like a tidal wave. Memories came flooding back, her eyes watching him as he laughed cruelly. Her whispered, "One day, you'll know." And that trembling photo in his hand. All the signs were there, but he hadn't cared enough to look. He had been too proud, too blind. Lucas rushed back to the park. This time, there was no swagger, no cameras, just a son running to the only mother he had truly ever known. Aurora was there, as always, though she looked more tired than before. Lucas approached slowly, then knelt beside her. His eyes were wet. "I got the results," he whispered. She didn't speak, but her lips pressed together, trembling. "I'm so sorry," he said. "For everything. For what I said. What I did. I didn't know. I didn't want to believe." Aurora looked at him, tears brimming in her eyes. "I knew you wouldn't. That's why I waited." Lucas bowed his head, ashamed. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I tried," she said softly. "Years ago, when I tracked you down, your father shut the door in my face. He said I had no place in your life, that you were happy, safe." Lucas clenched his jaw. "He lied to me. He took you away." She nodded slowly. "He thought he was protecting you. Maybe, in his mind, he was. But it cost me everything." Lucas reached out, his hand gently covering hers. "You didn't deserve that." They sat in silence, the snow swirling gently around them. Then Lucas said something he never imagined himself saying. "Come with me. You don't have to stay here anymore." Aurora looked into his eyes. "You sure you want a beggar as your mother?" He shook his head, eyes filled with emotion. "I want my mother. The one I should have known. The one I need to know." A tear rolled down Aurora's cheek, and for the first time in 26 years, she let her son help her up. not just from the bench, but from the years of silence, pain, and invisibility. That day, the world didn't change, but Lucas did, and so did she. Lucas sat quietly beside Aurora on the same cold, weathered park bench where their story had begun. The city buzzed around them, cars honking, footsteps echoing, people lost in their busy lives. But in that moment, the world seemed to pause. His eyes were red. His voice cracked. "Why didn't you come for me?" he asked, barely above a whisper. "All these years, why didn't you try to find me?" Aurora turned slowly toward him. Her frail hands clutched the edges of her worn blanket, her lips trembling. "I did," she said, her voice shaking. "But they told me I died." Lucas blinked. "What?" She nodded. "They told me I died during childbirth. That you didn't make it. That there was nothing left." Lucas stared, stunned. Aurora looked away, her eyes filled with the weight of decades. "I woke up weeks later, in a hospital in another city. I was sick, my body broken. I had no memory of how I got there. Just flashes. I asked for you again and again, but no one listened. When I finally regained strength, I returned to the town where I gave birth." She paused, her voice cracking. "But your family had moved. There was no trace of you. I had no money, no lawyer, no help, just your name and a picture I never let go." Lucas felt his chest tighten. "I searched for years, Lucas," Aurora whispered. "Every day, I asked at shelters, looked through adoption records, even begged police stations. But the world doesn't listen to a poor, sick woman with no proof. No one believed me. I became invisible." Tears slid down Lucas's face. The same woman he had laughed at, the same woman he filmed for social media, the same woman he mocked with cruel words. She was his mother. The one who gave him life. The one who never stopped trying to find him, even when the world shut every door in her face. "I'm so sorry," Lucas said, breaking down. "I was so blind, so cruel." Aurora reached out and gently wiped his tear. "You didn't know?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "But I should have looked deeper. I should have cared." That day, Lucas made a decision that he wasn't going to let her sit alone anymore. He wasn't going to let the world ignore her the way he once had. He stood up, helped her to her feet, and took her home. Not to a shelter, not to a hotel.home.to his apartment. To warmth, to dignity. And then, Lucas did something even more unimaginable. He went public. He posted a new video. This time, not for views or validation, but for truth.in. He stood beside Aurora, holding her hand. "This is Aurora," he said. "She's not a stranger. She's not a beggar. She's not trash. She's my mother." The camera zoomed in as he turned to her and whispered, "I'm sorry." He hugged her tightly, tears streaming down his face. And that moment, raw, real, and powerful, went viral again. But this time, for a different reason. People around the world who once laughed at the old viral video now shared this one with comments like, "This brought me to tears." A reminder never to judge someone by how they look. This man found his mother and his heart. Even the media picked up the story. Interviews flooded in. Aurora was no longer just the woman on the bench. She was a symbol of resilience, of motherhood, of love that never gives up. And Lucas? He changed, not just in the public eye, but deep inside that he still practiced law. He still wore suits and attended courtrooms. But now, he used his platform to advocate for the homeless, for the forgotten, for mothers like Aurora who fall through the cracks of society. He no longer looked down on people sleeping on benches, because he knew he had once been the child of one. And every morning, before going to work, he made breakfast for Aurora. They'd sit together, talking, laughing, healing that he wasn't just a lawyer now, that he was a proud son. And she was finally seen, finally loved, because sometimes the person you pass on the street, the one the world ignores, might be the one who gave up everything for you. Speech balloon, what would you do if you found out a stranger was your real parent? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Thumbs up like this story if it moved you. Bell subscribe for more true, emotional stories that remind us what really matters, because everyone has a story, and some stories change everything.